Hey boys and girls and kids of all ages really, I wanted to welcome you to my shop. My name is Kevin. I am a bookbinder in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I know that we are all under a lot of strange situations right now with the virus, and we're all stuck at home, and we're probably going a little stir crazy. We're not out with our friends, we're not out socializing, and we're stuck at home. We're watching TV all the time, and we need something else to do. And I want to give you a different option. And it's my job to make books. I do that for a living. I restore old books, and I want to teach you the basics of how you can make a book at your very own home using everything that's in your house. You won't have to go shopping. We're going to improvise. We're going to use some strange materials. We're going to make some paste, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And you're going to make your own book, and hopefully it's going to be something that you'll remember and cherish forever as the book that you made during the pandemic. So let's give it a try. Okay, so the supplies you're going to need to make this book at home, pretty simple. You're going to need some like copy paper, some white paper, maybe some construction paper, or any sort of colored paper would be great. It could be like gift wrap paper. You're going to need some sort of brush to put paste on. If you don't have a brush, it could be a sponge, it could be just your hands. There's a cat. You don't need a cat to make a book, but they do like to get in the way during the process. So if you have one, expect this to happen. You're going to need some wax paper if you have it, like a cereal box or a cracker box, or maybe even just a cardboard box. And you need some scissors, needle and thread, something to poke holes with. You could use the same needle or maybe a nail or a screw, something to measure with like a ruler or tape measure. We are going to make some paste, so you're going to want some flour and a mixing bowl and a whisk and some cold water and a paper sack and maybe like a file folder or something like that, something a heavyweight paper of some sort. That should do it. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do to make our book is we're going to make some paste. Now, bookbinding is a very ancient craft, and one of the most ancient parts about it are the adhesives, and paste is one of those. You've made it probably before in school. Flour and water makes paste. And as a bookbinder, we add other things to it so that it will be a little less attractive to bugs and different things that might want to eat it. But for our purpose, we're just going to use flour and water. So I'm going to take this is about half a cup. I'm going to put it through a little bit of a sifting process if you can. If you don't, that's fine. Then to that, we're going to add some cold water. What's very important, a lot of people make a mistake, you have to add cold water. So if you don't have any real cold water, take some, put it in a bottle, put it in the fridge, let it sit in the fridge for at least an hour or so. Now you're just going to add a little bit at a time, and you're going to take a whisk and we're just whisk it up really good. You don't want any lumps. So we're just going to add a little bit at a time. We don't want it real thin either. And you're going to mix it. It's going to start getting thick. It'll start to look like cookie dough. You're going to add a little more. It'll start thinning out. You don't want it real watery. See how thick it's starting to get? That's too thick still, because now we can't get it on our brush. So we're going to keep adding some water. The cold water is what makes it nice and smooth. So it's going to start looking like frosting almost. Still a little thick, because we're going to take a little time to make our book. So just be careful not to get this all over your brother or sister. Make sure you clean up your mom and dad's kitchen when you're done. So we're starting to get a little better. So it's nice and thin. That's what we want. We don't want big lumps in it. Otherwise those lumps they'll press into little bumps when we make our book. So I'm going to add just a little bit more. You want it, if you don't have anything to make paste, you can also use like Elmer's glue, would work fine, but this is a little more fun. And anything you left over, you can do a little paper mache project if you'd like. And but you do want to use this the same day you make it. Now, once it dries on the book, it won't cause any problems, but if you just let it sit in the bowl, in a few days, it'll start molding. So this is about a good consistency. See where it's real kind of drippy? That's about where we want it for our project, because we're going to let it sit and it's going to take a little time for us to make our book, but by the time we're ready, this is going to be perfect. So our next step is that we're going to make a folded section. This is also called a signature. And what we need is, maybe 10 sheets of like copy paper. It can be less if you'd like, but let's start with about 10. We're going to, hopefully if you have maybe some construction paper or some sort of colored paper, just as a decorative element. And then something kind of like a file folder or something a little bit heavier. You're not going to see this. It's just going to be used to help support the book itself to make it stronger. So what we're going to do is take our individual sheets of printer paper and we're just going to fold them in half like this. And we want to make sure that we get a nice good fold here. Okay, so we're going to take as many as you need to do. If you want, you can even take all of them at once and fold them a little bit. Get a nice little fold, and then that helps then you can take them apart and helps then fold them better all together. To me, this is a lot faster way to do it, especially if you're making just, again, a simple little book at home. Take all of them like this, put them together. Make a good fold. Then we're going to take all of those and put them back in. We're going to do what's called nesting the pages. We're going to put one inside the other until we get them all back in order as one section. We're going to do this so that you can do a simple little sewing technique on your little group of pages that will help your book open up all the way to the middle. And this is one of the oldest techniques in bookbinding. So now we have what's called a section or a signature. And in the old days, and even still today, but starting back a long time ago when books were made, this looks like pages. But what most people don't know is that actually there are many pages printed on one sheet of paper. So it's my job as a bookbinder to take these, get them folded up properly, sew them together, and trim them. So you'll see a couple books here that have been sewn in this process. So you're going to do a simplified version of that. So we're going to take your folded section of whites, then you're going to take a paper of some fun color that you might like, one of your favorite colors, and you're going to take that paper and you're going to put it on the outside so that you see it like this. Okay? Then you're going to take a file folder and we're going to take a pencil and we are going to cut this file folder a little bit, about the same height or a little bit shorter than what the height of our book is. So we're going to take in our pair of scissors. Again, we're not going to worry about super exact measurements because we're in a dire situation right now and we just need to get our book done. So you see I'm just cutting this folder and I'm just going to use this fold that's right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little strip. It's about maybe an inch or so on each side of that fold. It's got printing on it, but that's all right. It's not going to show up. And what that's going to do is we're going to wrap that also around the outside of our section, and we're going to sew through all of this. And when we do that, it's going to make for a nice strong book. This is going to help support it. Otherwise, if we just put this in our cover, it could just fall right out. So we have our folded section with our little reinforcement strip. So now we're going to start we're going to take them back apart, and we're going to go all the way to the middle, and we're going to poke some holes through this. The easiest way for you to do it at home is take your middle, the section right in the middle, and take a pencil and mark a little dot right about in the middle. Then we're going to make another dot about an inch in from each side. Okay, then we're going to make another dot in the middle of each of those. And we're going to punch holes in the paper at that spot. Now you can use whatever you have. If you have a nail or like a screw like this works really good. Something with a little sharp point end. It doesn't need to be much. If you have a toolbox at home and you have something like an awl, even better. Lots of different things, just be careful. And so what you're going to do, let's just do these one at a time. I'm going to show one and then you can do it to all of them. So you're just going to punch a little hole. Punch a little hole in that one. A little hole. A little hole. A little hole. Then you're going to use this one as a guide for all the other ones. So you're going to take these two, now put them together and punch another little hole through that, another little hole through that, and you're just going to do them one at a time. Okay? Very important that we keep these in the same order. So when you take this one out, set it aside, take the next one, keep everything in line. You're going to do this with all of the pages. You're also going to do it with this folded sheet of color paper. You're going to line it up in the middle. Put a hole, and a hole in that one. So each one is going to have little holes punched in it. And then you're also going to do it right on the end of your little card. So this one might be a little trickier. You can cut it a little shorter than the pages if you want. See how I got it a little shorter? That works really good. It doesn't have to. If it sticks out a little bit, we don't care. So you're going to open that up and you're going to punch a little hole through that card also. Okay? So again, so you get all that punched. Then we'll be ready to do some sewing. So the next step in the process is for us to sew our signature. And we're just going to use a normal needle and thread. And I'm going to show you first with pencil how we're going to sew this. We call this a double figure of 8. So here's our section. Here's the one hole we made, another hole we made. So we have these 5 holes. So we're going to start on the inside, and we're going to come out the middle hole, outside and come back in the next hole over. You can go left or right, doesn't matter. And we're going to come inside and back out, and we're going to come outside and back in. So you're starting to see the 8 forming. But this time, instead of coming out this hole, which would make a perfect 8, we're actually going to jump all the way across to here. We're going to come out, back in, from the inside, out, from out, back in the middle. And we're going to come out and end up where we started. So now we're going to take the needle and thread. We're going to need about, maybe 3 lengths of the book of the thread. Cut it. Go ahead and thread your needle. Just be very careful. Get some help if you need it, but you should be able to do this. You have better eyes than I do. Okay, get plenty on the needle so it doesn't come off too easily. Then we're going to start in the middle. We're going to come out that hole. Now it could be a little hard to find the hole, so you may have to wiggle around, you may have to go through one page or the other, but you'll find it. So you want to come out and then right back in the next hole here. Okay, so when you pull that through, make sure you don't pull that thread all the way through. You want to leave about 6 inches or so hanging out. Then you want to go to the outside hole. Again, pull it through so that just about like that. Come back in that same hole you just were at here. Now this time, remember I said we're going to jump across? So instead of coming out here, we're going to go all the way to the next hole. Jump across. Then we're going to go to the end. We'll go in that hole. We're going to give it a little tug. We're going to come back through the hole there. Wiggle it till it comes back out. Then we're going to come back in this hole. Okay? Then we're going to pull all that through. So now you have the 2 ends of the thread coming through the same hole in the beginning. Now what's really important here is that what we want to be able to do is take this cross thread, and I want it on each side of one of the different threads, so that the thread coming out and the thread coming back in is on each side of that hole. So what we need to do next is just tighten our threads. We're just going to pull it. Keep pulling threads and tightening them. Pull this thread. Pull it back here. Make it nice and tight. Just be careful. You don't want to tear through your paper. Then once you've done that, you're going to make a knot. First part of the knot. And the last part of the knot. And if you want to be, just to be safe, you can do it a couple more times. Just to make sure that knot doesn't come loose. Okay? Then when you've finished your knot, you're going to take your scissors. Looks like Milton's trying to come over here to see what we're doing. He likes thread as much as anybody else. Cut it off so there's just a little bit left. And that's your section. So we've made our little section, and now we need to try and flatten it out a little bit. As a bookbinder, I have a lot of different presses here in the shop. You can see these big iron presses. Those are very important for bookbinding because we have to apply a lot of pressure to books at different times during the process. You kids don't have any presses at home, so you're going to have to improvise. If you don't have an elephant either, I'm going to recommend that you just stand on your book. But let's protect it first. We're going to wrap some newspaper around your book, and we're going to put a couple layers of newspaper around it. We're just going to put it on the ground and stand on it. Just 1 foot, put all your weight on that, wiggle back and forth, try and feel that crease, do a little dance if you'd like. Then we're going to take a look at it, and hopefully it'll be just a little bit flatter, so it's not so puffy anymore, and that will help. Now comes the fun part. Grab a cereal box, or maybe a cracker box. I'd recommend eating all of it first, using the empty box. But if not, you can pull the bag out. This bag actually might be useful too. If you don't have any wax paper, you can use these bags. It works perfect. So, one more bite. We just need some sort of box. Now you could use a cardboard box if you have an Amazon box or something like that. That works fine. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut this box apart, and we're going to use it as the boards of our book. So we just need some scissors, and we're just going to cut down one of the folds. Doesn't matter, this is plenty big. Right now all we're going to do is try and open up the box. Whoops. Now we have a nice open box, and we're going to cut the boards for our book out of this box. So we're going to try and make it as easy as possible, and we're going to use some of the lines that are already on the box. So the first thing you're going to do is take your section, you're going to line it up with a fold that's on the box. Right on the edge, the side, the spine edge or the back that we sewed. Then you're going to make a little mark on the board. Actually, let's just draw the whole line right here. And let's line it up right with, so that this fold is at the bottom. But now what we're going to do is we're going to bring this up a little bit, maybe about 1/4 inch or so. And I'm going to make a little line here and a little line there. So this line we're going to cut on, and we're also going to cut on this fold. So let's start with this fold. And again, if it were me doing this, we have big board shears that cut our boards for us. But you guys don't have those, but I bet you have this pair of scissors. And we're just going to nicely cut along that fold to help get us started. Now this other long fold, we're going to cut exactly on the fold. So we're almost there. And we're just going to cut all the way up here so we have some extra. Now, here's our pencil line from the top. It's a little light, but let me make it a little darker here. So that was the top of our section, and here's our bottom. So this one we have about a 1/4 of an inch away. So we're going to cut this one about a 1/4 of an inch away. And again, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. We don't care. This would be our own little unique book. So here's one board for our book. Okay, now we're going to make one more. So you're going to take the same thing and put it on the box. This time I would just draw around the whole thing. Very simply. All the way around. And you're going to cut that out the same way you did this one. So now that we have made our section and we've cut our boards out of the cereal box, now we're going to make something to cover it in. So I've just taken a brown paper sack. This is a type with handles. I've cut it apart. I've removed the bottom part because we don't want this. This is too awkward. So we're just going to take this and lay it out on the table. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my boards. I'm going to take the ruler that we had earlier. I'm going to lay this on the edge of the cutout. And I'm going to put my board there. And I'm going to draw around my board with my pencil. Okay. Then I'm going to measure over about 3/4 of an inch on my ruler. My ruler's not real good, but let's say about there. And I'm going to put my other board on there at that spot. And I want to make sure that the two boards line up with each other. So I'm going to put my ruler across the top just to make sure they're about the same. Then I'm going to draw around that board. That. Then I can move these out. Then I'm going to take my ruler on the outside of the board on each one. I'm just going to make a little dash line like this, because that's going to tell me where I'm going to cut. I'll put this out here. Got a little close to my hanging thing handles there, but we can work around that. This one's already cut, and this one I'm going to make a little dash line out here. Again, it just has to be close. We're not looking for perfect for our little book. So then I'm going to cut out around that dotted line. I'm going to try and avoid my little handles here. And just something nice and quick. And that should be it. Remember that this space in between here, that's about 3/4 of an inch. And your mom and dad can help you measure that if you need to. But it's probably like 2 fingers, one of my big fingers, but maybe a couple of your fingers across would be about the right measurement. So the next step is that now we're going to take the boards that we cut and we're going to glue it to our paper covering. So you can use whatever side you want. This is a little slick, but we're going to have to be pasting both sides anyway. But let's go ahead and start with this dull side. You're going to need some sort of brush. Again, it could be a paintbrush, it can be a small brush, it can be a sponge if you don't have a brush, it can even be your hands. There's nothing wrong, it's just flour and water, it's not going to hurt anything. Try not to eat too much of it, but you know, again, it won't hurt you much. If you do have some issues with using flour in the house, rice flour does do the same thing. That's actually a very ancient recipe also. So whatever would work for you, I'm sure you have some equivalent at home. So we're just going to take some of our paste, make sure you do this on top of some newspaper, and just cover that board with paste. Get it all over it. Don't worry if it slides around, if you get it all over you. That's why I wear aprons. You can be wearing an old shirt or maybe your mom or dad's old shirt. You can have that on inside out. And so just take now your board with all that paste on it, and we're going to stick it down right where we drew our lines. Okay, get as close as you can. Now don't worry, this is going to look like it's curling up and doing weird things, but that's okay. That's just the paper doing what it does when it gets wet. So then we're going to take the next one, take a different piece of scratch paper without paste all over it. And we're going to do this again for the other one. Slop that paste on there. Don't need too much, but you do want to make sure it's 100% covered. Whoops, that's all right. We're going to put this down in the lines that we drew earlier. Try and make sure that these are pretty close to lining up. Once it's glued, let's take and flip it over and let's flatten it out. Just rub it down as best you can. Go all the way around the edges. Don't worry about all the little sack creases. That's just part of our project because we're in the situation we're in. Then the next step is that we're going to cut off the corners because we don't need all of this material. So let's take and cut off some of our corners like this. Just like that. Get it kind of close, but not right up against the board, but pretty close to it. You can have a little bit of a distance like that. And you're going to cut all these off. Try and get them even, but if you cut a little angle like that, that's okay. It's not going to matter. It's all going to work. And we're going to let this sit for a sec, and then we're going to turn the edges in. So the last step in making our cover is that we're going to turn our edges in. So the first thing we just need, I'm just using a big piece of scrap paper, but a piece of newspaper would work perfect for that because we're going to get paste all over it. So now normally in the bookbinding world we use glue, more like Elmer's glue for a lot of this process. So it does stick a lot faster, but paste will work. You just have to let it rest a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold my cover down and I'm going to paste all the way around. Now you can do one side at a time if you'd like, but for this video I'm just going to do all of them and show you how to do all the different sides. So do it nice and get glue, paste all the way on there, all four sides. Don't worry if you make a mess, it's not going to hurt anything. Then just pick it up. Let's get rid of our scratch paper, get it out of the way. Then we're just going to take and we're going to fold this paper over. Okay. I like to start with the long sides. Fold this side over. Okay. Then you can just take this. You can make a little crease like that if you'd like. Fold it over again. I'm going to make a little crease with my hands. I just push it in a little bit, like a little pinch. And I fold that over. Okay. Then remember when we stepped on our book earlier? We're going to do the same thing. You're going to take some newspapers, wrap around this, put it on the floor, and step on it. So we're already making our cover. Okay, so you're going to do that, and then we'll come back. So here's our finished cover. How's yours look? I hope it looks something like this. Don't worry if you have some wrinkles, things like that, the parts of the sack. That's all going to make yours very unique and different than anybody else's. So that's something for you to be excited about. So now what we're going to do is paste the pages of the book into the cover. And then we're going to stand on it and do a little jig, and then our book will be ready a little bit later to use. So first off, what you're going to do is open your book up to just underneath this colored sheet of paper. And we're going to add in another piece of just scrap paper. This can be newspaper again, it can be another piece of the white paper, but we're going to make sure that it's bigger than everything else here, okay? Because it's going to get paste on it and we're going to throw it away. So then we're going to take more of our paste. Again, we want to go underneath here. We're going to get all of the green, cover the whole green with paste. Don't worry, things are going to slide around. You're going to get paste on you. I've already got it on my finger. That's no problem. That's a part of a bookbinder's life, is getting glue on them. So I've got it there. Then I need to get some here. If you have some Elmer's glue, this part works really good with Elmer's glue, especially this part I'm doing right here. But paste will work. Paste just takes a long time to dry. Elmer's glue dries a lot faster. So then I'm going to open up this grain page. I'm going to pull this piece with all the paste on it out. I'm just going to throw it away. I'm going to slide my book cover over. And what I want to do now is just pick up the whole book cover. Don't worry, just grab it here and here. And I'm going to flip it over and put it down on the cover. Slide it around. I want to make sure that I have about the same amount of book cover showing on all three of these sides. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but get it close to that. Okay, then you're going to push, 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 push really good. Then you're going to open it up all the way to that green sheet. That's called your end sheet. You can call it the paste down because we pasted it down. We're going to take a piece of the wax paper. You're going to rub this down a little bit, but now you're going to leave the wax paper in there. That'll make sure that the moisture from that page doesn't get in and wrinkle all of your book. So now that one's stuck down, we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to put a scratch paper underneath. We're going to put a bunch of paste on here. Paste it up. Don't be afraid. Paste, paste, paste. More the merrier. You want to make sure you can see it. Now we're going to put paste out here. Same idea. Plenty of paste. We're going to open up this green sheet again. Take this scrap paper out. Just throw it away. Lay the book down. If a book is curling and all that stuff, just stick it down with your hands. It'll be fine. You'll get it closed. Now we're just going to take and we're going to wrap this around all the way around it, trying to get the corners of the old cover, the bottom cover, to match with the corners of the top cover. We're going to push that down, rub it down, rub it down. We're going to open it up a little bit. We're going to see our green paper stuck here. I'm going to take a piece of wax paper. I'm going to put it inside. I'm going to push down a little harder. I'm going to rub down right here, carefully, right along the edge of my cereal box covers. Right along there. You can make a little point there if you'd like. So I'm going to rub it down a little bit more, and then we're going to stand on it. I'm going to show you how to do that one more time. And then we're going to put some weight on it. So here's our finished book so far. We've got the wax paper inside. We want to leave that in there almost all of the day. So the next step is we need to press it. Again, you don't have presses at home, but you have you, and that's the most important part. So we're going to take our book and we're going to wrap it inside some newspaper again, just to help protect it a little bit. We're going to put it back on the floor and we're going to stand on it. Step on it, step on it, step on it. We need to add weight. We need to push it down. Push, jump, jump. Now your mom and dad are going to like this because I want you to do this for about 5 minutes. Just stand on it, keep pushing, feel it underneath your feet, push around the edges of it all the way around. Don't slide your feet, make sure you're moving them up and down all the time. Okay, like you're marching in a band. So now that you've made your book, you've been standing on it, to give it some weight and to do a little pressing. What I would probably recommend is that you take a big book like this. It doesn't have to be this book, like a dictionary or something. It doesn't have to be an old 400-year-old book like I have, but just put it on top of the book and let it sit there for maybe 4, 5, 6 hours and let it just press. Make sure you keep that wax paper in there. That's pretty important. So, but when it's all done, you can take your book out, you can take the wax paper out, and you're going to have a little book that you can write in and write a story in. When you open it the first time, you want to be a little careful. Kind of fold it open nice and get this front board to open nicely. Flip it over and do it on the back. And then it might curl, but you know, that's just things like that are going to happen because we made a book at home, and that's the best part. So you need to come up with a story. You need to give it a title because every book needs a title. And I want you to have fun with this. I want you to write a story. You can draw pictures. You can do whatever you want in your special little book. It's going to be something that you're going to keep forever. But I do want you to make one little note. Somewhere, maybe on the inside, maybe on the front page or the last page, put today's date and put a little explanation of why you made this book so that a long time from now, maybe when you're my age, you can look back at your little book and remember that you were part of this lock-in that we've all had and that we are doing this together. And what I really want you to do, so write a little something about the pandemic that you remember, the date, that sort of thing. That's going to be important later on. But what I really want you to do is I want you to write about it, and I want you to come back and send me a video back, maybe at my Instagram or my website or my Facebook page. I'll share it on all of those. Send me a video, show me your book, or you can even read me the story that you wrote. And because we're not right now, we're in Lincoln, Nebraska. We're not in a lockdown, but we probably will be. So again, this is probably going to be my home for a couple weeks. And so I'm going to be stuck here by myself, just with Milton. And I would love to hear some stories from you to kind of help me pass the time while I'm here. So best thing to do is make the most creative thing you can. But make sure it's all yours. This needs to be your story, your book, and have your parents share it. Let's do a hashtag. Let's do a hashtag. Today I'm a bookbinder. How's that? I hope you have fun with it. I hope you learned something. And we're going to get through this together, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.